A Harry Problem by Blue Bastard. Chapter 24. Family Reunion. Applejack! 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 The orange pony cracked her eyes open. As far as she could tell, for some reason, she had passed out shortly after she had killed Sabalone. Applejack, are you alright? Sounded out the voice. It was vaguely familiar, but Applejack was still dizzy in the head as he couldn't place it. Hold on, she muttered, slowly rising off the ground. She felt several sets of hooves grab onto her, assisting her back into her own set, letting her know that she was back in her regular form, if not totally back in mental capacity. Blinking a few times, Applejack could finally start seeing her surroundings. Her friends and family were all surrounding her, concerned looks on their faces, while the Royal Guards ponies were all over the place. Just within her limited field of vision, Applejack could see a heavily injured Iron Will sitting down, receiving medical treatment from a guard mag. Well, did it work? Impatiently asked Rainbow Dash. Did what work? Killing Sabalome! Are you back to normal? I mean, you were glowing after you passed out, and you turned from your wolf form to your regular pony body, but it then stopped glowing. I don't know, really. Was that supposed to make me fully a pony again? Yes, at least that's what the book said, Twilight mentioned. What book? Asked the voice that Applejack was surprised to hear. Looking at the direction of the voice, it was in fact Princess Celestia. Both she and Princess Luna were here, fully dressed in battle armor for some reason, but Applejack hadn't noticed. In response, Twilight pulled out a copy of Magical and Maniacal Monsters of Melissa's Mayhem and telepathically handed it over to her mentor. The magic aurora around the book changed from purple to yellow as Celestia examined the book closely, a smile coming to her face. I guess in the end, he did get his revenge on his former leader, mused Celestia. Who got revenge, sister? Asked Luna. With her hoof, Celestia pointed out to Luna that the author of the book was one Bronze Shield. Bronze Shield? Isn't he the one pony with the kitty mark manes? The same. Princess, sheepishly asked Twilight, who's Bronze Shield? Bronze Shield was Sabalone's right-hand pony back when Sable led his Centurion away from the guard into Sombra's empire. He turned on Sable after becoming disillusioned with him and abandoned the werewolves shortly before Luna and I made our move to free the empire. He was the first of the few surviving werewolves at the time to both repledge his allegiance to the twin thrones of Equestria and to tell us the monstrosity Sable had turned his men into. I say, if there was any writing to be trusted about werewolves, it would be written by him. What? Q mark lines? Asked Applejack, before turning to look at her flank. She was overjoyed to see her triplet of apples, which had faded to almost being non-existent out of her lycanthropy, but had now returned to their full color luster. As bright as day they had appeared so long ago. Milk! It's back! That means you're back to normal, right? Appleblossom wondered. Only one way to find out, said Applejack, who began to focus on turning into her wolf form. Before the fight with Sable, she'd somewhat been able to figure out how to shift between forms simply by thinking about it. But now, try as hard as she could not make herself turn into her monstrous form. I think I'm finally free of that curse! This calls for a party! Immediately declared Pinky, rearing up to stick her forelegs into the sky. But as she looked up, she asked, Why is that star so bright? This prompted every pony to look up, and before even the princesses or Pinky could react, they were hit with what could have been a falling star, encapsulating all the ponies involved with Applejack's werewolf secret in a blinding light that outdid anything Celestia could think of. Celestia came to, standing on her four legs, in a place she could not recall ever having been in before. City? Asked Luna, who seemingly appeared out of nowhere. Where are we? A plane of existence above that which we normally can't even attain. There are powers at work here no pony of even our status can hope to achieve, but I don't know why. Well, that's kind of a bummer, since I was just about to ask that of you, Princess, said the wood drawled. She, Lyra, the Apple family, and the main six were all gathered in one group, along with the princesses, in what appeared to be an otherworldly realm. There was no ground to speak of, but a visible horizon separated the slightly green-tinted luminescent floor and what seemed to be a sky made of that night, filled with constellations. "Are we dead?" asked Fluttershy. "I don't think so," added Twilight. "Well, I would hope that this isn't the afterlife," said Rarity, going into involuntary critic mode. "As nice as the city is, I do kind of wish it wasn't so open and empty." "Don't worry. This isn't the afterlife, and you are not dead," said another new voice. One of the princesses seemed to instantly register as familiar. Luna and Celestia looked at each other. Then, in the pursued direction from where the voice had came from, uttering together of their name of God. "Mom!" As if in response, a large figure emerged as if both materializing from nothing and out of a thick fog. She was an alicorn, much like the princesses. But unlike Celestia and Luna, she wore no crown or royal accessories. Her coat was off-white, mane and tail a moderately dark shade of maroon, her eyes a pure blue, and her cutie mark, oddly enough, was an inkwell with a feather pen. The regular ponies were stunned at the existence of another alicorn, as counting Nightmare Moon as a separate entity. There had been only 4 true alicorns within the past 1,000 years, with the youngest being Princess Cadance. "Princess," Twilight asked her mentor, "you and Luna just asked if this was your mother, and if she is, doesn't that make her—" "Yes, my faithful student. This is our mother, Queen Faust." Upon hearing their ruler say this new alicorn was of a royal rank higher than even she, they all immediately bowed. Faustus laughed. "Oh, silly. I haven't been queen for centuries. Do you and Luna still insist on being mere princesses for the rest of your lives?"
Ladies and gentlemen, I want to think that I am the first live reader in the history of anybody doing these pony fics to do the voice of Lord Faust. I'm going to take that with my grave. I'm the first one to do Lord. Thank you. Thank you, Blue Bastard.
"To be fair, Mom," Luna commented, "at the time we had come to assume the throne after your passing, we were worried immensely, assuming the title of Queen would make the populace think we were evil." Luna then looked away as she said, "My incident with Nightmare Moon a few decades later certainly didn't help matters." Faust merely smiled as she walked up to her youngest daughter, nuzzling her. "Oh, Luna, even in the afterlife I feared the nightmare had forever changed you. You have no idea how happy I was when you were restored." Faust then turned to the main six, saying, "And I cannot thank you six enough for saving my daughter from herself with the elements."
Pardon me for asking, but Applejack began, taking off her hat and holding it to her chest. Didn't Princess Luna just say you, died about 2,000 years ago?
"I didn't die as in my heart stopped beating and I fell to the floor instantly. But it was my time to move on from the plane of physical existence into a higher one." "Why?" "It's complicated, to put it simply. Just understand that even as immortals we are allowed an unlimited amount of time in the physical realm, then we must move on. Though I am not in truth dead, my time in the material world is over, and for all intents and purposes I am functionally gone from this world."
Then, could you just explain what is going on, and if all of us are actually dead or not? Continued Applejack.
"Think of it as a vacation,"
Faust said, the corners of her mouth rising slightly in a smile. Without a doubt, those present suddenly learned where the royal sister's sense of humor came from.
"How rude of me. I didn't tell you what was going on."
Faust backed up a bit, cleared her throat.
"This isn't a true afterlife, but a place akin to the concept of limbo, a waiting room for the afterlife, if you will. However, while I'm in a sense dead on a physical plane, none of you are. So our spirits are free to commune in this plane, as long as it's allowed by the higher powers."
You mean there are beings of even greater power than you, Your Highness? Asked a bewildered Twilight,
Whilst he was the only one who voiced it, it was evident on all the ponies' faces that they had been thinking of similar lines. Of course, but they're rather stern with how they allow lesser creatures to access other planes of existence, and have only allowed this to happen because of the circumstances at hand. Circumstances? Like what? Isn't it obvious, young one? It is your sister becoming free of the lycanthropic curse set upon her by Sabalone. Then why are you here, mother? Because I've been wanting to talk to you and Luna ever since he was restored, as you have both long since come of age, and I am so proud of you. But the powers that be didn't see that as reason enough for such a meeting to happen.
Then why does Maki cure my hair problem? Cue credits. I have something to do with that!
Asked Applejack. Because my true purpose here is that I am the escort for two special ponies who want to talk to you, now that the curse on Applejack has been lifted.
Big Mac almost figured it out. You don't mind.
The eldest nodded. Being a psychopomp has its privileges, she said with a soft smile. Two more shapes emerged from the fog of nothingness toward the assembled ponies. However, they were regular-sized ponies. Both of them Earth, and clearly a married couple. The stallion was as large as Big Mac, with dark green fur and male and tail coloration of light brown, while the mare had a periwinkle coat with a two-color mane and tail of purple and white. But it was the cutie marks that revealed their identities to the majority of ponies who had never seen them before. The stallion had 3 seeds, while the mare had a single cornflower on her flank.
Oh, my stars,
said Granny.
Appleseed, is it really you?
Yeah, Mo, it's me.
Appleseed answered, a tear coming to his eye.
Is that you, Mo?
Added Big Mac, still trying to comprehend the sight of his mother in front of him. I hope you would still remember me, even after all this time, Cornflower said with a smile, before looking at her daughters. My, how have you two grown? Applejack could say nothing, but Apple Bloom moved slowly forward. She could not remember ever having seen these two new ponies before, but deep down she knew they were the parents she had never known.
Wait, are you all my mom and dad?
The yellow filly asked. Upon the affirmative nods from Appleseed and Cornflower, Apple Bloom launched into a dash and tackled into her parents, trying to hug both of them at once. Big, fat tears came from her eyes, as the missing part of her life was finally given back to her. The memory of her parents even looked like, more importantly, what they were like as individuals. The Apple parents, in turn, embraced their youngest daughter, and the rest of the Apple families moved in to make it one giant family hug. For the first time in over a decade, the Apples were once again a family. Let us give them some privacy, Val suggested, smiling at the ill-feeling couple, finally seeing their children grown up. Her horn glowed bright blue, and in a flash, the 3 alicorns were whisked away to another location within the plane to hold their own family reunion.
Look, Pluma, there. I know you want your cutie mark, but you can't force it. As the youngest in a family who's lived for a generous races on setting nature run its course, you should understand that.
Cornflower said to her youngest daughter.
Oh, come on! Surely you must know like some kind of supernatural tricks or something that I could use. Like you even telling me what my special talent actually is, because you all see the future?
Appleseed just laughed.
Just 'cause we're no longer among the living doesn't mean we're oracles or anything, Bloomin'. Plus, anything we could do now wouldn't apply to you, since you're all still alive, and we want to see you continue to grow up.
Oh,
whined Apple Bloom.
oh well, at least I could tell other ponies that even my parents tell me and my friends we gotta start trying to earn our cutie marks that way.
The 6 members of the Apple family laughed, generating an aura of good feelings that continued to help provide much-needed closure for those still living. Off to the side, the main 6, Lyra and Sandalwood, formed their own group for discussion, giving the Apples family the space they needed. Appleseed, however, decided it had been long enough.
Hey, Y'all, can you come over here? Oh, I guess it's time we told every pony our side of the werewolf story.
But we already know about what happened to you 10 years ago from various sources, Lyra mentioned. Regardless, the other ponies gathered around the living apples.
We knew, but there is some information you couldn't have learned from the world of the living.
Pointed out Appleseed, who proceeded to nod to his wife. Cornflower, in turn, steeled herself at taking a deep breath, before she began to evaluate what the gathered ponies already knew. Alright, so how much about werewolves do y'all know? Well, started Twilight, from what we've learned, Sombra was the one who originally created the werewolf curse about 1,000 years ago, to grant the wishes of Sablelome and his centurion to be more like wolves. But more importantly, lycanthropy could be spread when a non-cursed pony's blood comes into contact with the fluids of a werewolf, usually the saliva with a bloody bite to the neck, if most cases were any are like what happened to Applejack. Added Sandalwood, causing Applejack to grin at the mention of how she contacted lycanthropy. There's also reportedly two ways lycanthropy could end to the victim. Normally, the victim would succumb to the curse and irreversibly turn into a full wolf. In the extremely rare cases that the victim was of a bloodline with no specific blood quantity and bitten by a werewolf with the same effects as Sable, the end result would instead be no degradation into a wolf, and they would still become immortal.
I don't know whether or not I was going to end up a full wolf or not,
said Applejack. I'm just glad we'll never be able to find out. Excellent, honey, interjected Cornflower. We know the answer, but we'll get to that in a minute. What does the name Fair Fista mean to you all?
Fair, who? Asked Pinky. I don't know any pony by that name, and I know every pony's name in Ponyville.
Fair Vista, Applejack replied.
Sable went on about her right before I thought. Something about how I was supposed to replace her as his mate or something. Makes me wonder how far that mare had to have been to allow him to be that close to her, unless he was brainwashed into it. Fair Vista was a pony who only lived for the moment,
Appleseed stated.
She willingly chose at the drop of a hat to not only abandon her established life in Baltimore, leaving behind a loving husband and her own daughter, but also to be turned into a werewolf to live his life one big adventure.
Pardon me asking, but how do you know all this? Asked Rarity. I mean, no offense, you're, well, dead. Plus, you don't seem to have any history with that pony.
Gwen Viles told us, or rather, she showed us with her magic, relatively around the time we did eventually die. She felt we needed to know the truth behind our deaths, maybe to assure us it wasn't our fault that we ended up abandoning our children in the hooves of my mother. The same way Fair Vista abandoned her child, only to be raised by her father.
But the irony of it all, added Cornflower, is that Fair Vista was my ancestor. Her daughter would grow up and continue her bloodline for several generations, long enough that Fair Vista was not even a memory by the time I moved to Ponyville. But for over 240 years she remained alive by Sable's side. Her final, real act was attacking us and turning us into werewolves. Hold on, said Twilight. That means Fair Vista's bloodline had the necessary blood quantity to be immortal. So if you're a descendant of her, then you would have been immortal, and so all of your children would have been as well. Thankfully, only Applejack fell victim to lycanthropy. She'd been cured by ending the very monster who caused us so much strife.
The same could not be said for me, however,
said Appleseed.
While Cornflower here would have been able to live on, I don't have that, whatever that thing you said was that was allowing for that, and I was going to become a wolf. By the time Sable sounded that howl that winter's night, it was hard enough for me just to say full sentences.
That night, continued Cornflower, Sable summoned us against our will to that blizzard to try and use us the way Vista had intended, to act as the cornerstone for his new werewolf army. However, he was so overcome with grief upon seeing us, he attacked us on sight. We did our best as werewolves to try and retaliate, and we did some damage to him.
Well, he overpowered us and left us to bleed out in the cold weather. All we could think of about is how we would never see our children grown up, but instead they burned them with the task of keeping the farm alive. She then looked to each of her children in turn, Elsie drooping a foreleg around her, as tears began to form in her eyes. Your father and I, the fact that you thrived, grown, until we could see you all at least once more, it makes us so happy. Big Mac moved forward and embraced his parents, with the rest of the apples following suit. It was a tearful moment, the moment of closure that, while not evident, was something the living apples badly needed for over a decade. It fell to the emerging form of Queen Faust to break the bad news. Appleseed, cornflower, I am sorry, but the time to send the living home is drawing near. It was clear she, like the apple parents, wished there had been more time to spend between them and their still living offspring. Celestia and Luna appeared out of nowhere to rejoin their subjects not as rulers, but as children who were bidding their parents goodbye. Well, make you proud, Mom and Dad. Oh, Applejack, you silly little pony, laughed Cornflower. You've already made us proud. And with that, there was a sudden explosion of light that enveloped all ponies who were present, closing the connections between the plane of existence and separating the dead from the living once more.
Your Majesties, are you all right?
Celestia blinked, realizing that they had indeed returned to the plane of physical reality. One of the guards, a unicorn by the name of Gladrang, was frantically waving his hoof in front of their face, trying to get her attention. What is wrong? She asked. The guard seemed confused by his lead's response.
The blinding flash of light. Didn't you notice it?
What? Oh, yes. Tell me, how long have we been out?
Out? I'm afraid I don't quite understand. The flash was just a few seconds ago.
Huh, thought Celestia. It felt like we were in that alternate plane of existence for hours. Yet no time seems to have passed here. Amazing. She was going to say something else to the guard, but the noises of all the other ponies snapping out what must have looked like a momentary stupor. Don't worry about that flash of light. It is a matter neither I nor Luna are in liberty to discuss.
Understood, Your Majesty.
Just then, another guard, one of the Pegasus Chariot's pilots by the name of Foehammer, walked up and presented a slightly beat-up satchel to Celestia.
Princess! This was found on the body of the dead pony. As you seem to express great interest in this individual, it seems that you should see what he had first hoof.
Foehammer.
Seriously, you cannot be awesome with that name.
I mean, I bet he just got
all the fillies in school.
Celestia thanked and then dismissed the guard,
Foehammer!
before proceeding to open the satchel. It was a rather unremarkable satchel, similar to those in use by the National Mail Service, leaving Celestia to wonder who Sable had stolen from this one from. The contents were mere marginally more than interesting. A few preserved pieces of food, an old canteen that still was half full, a smaller bag of bits. Then Celestia found a good one. First was the old piece of brass. Celestia immediately recognized the faded carvings on the piece as being a fragment of Sable's old guard armor from when he still served the crown 1,000 years ago. It had been enchanted with a disguise spell at some point, but it hadn't seen much use recently. Then next was the locket. This too had a disguise spell on it, but in contrast to the old brass, this charm had been used recently, probably to sneak around Ponyville or other cities undetected. Finally, she pulled out the old picture, and her eyes went wide in shock. It was an old picture, probably only a decade or two after technology had been invented, but she could not make out any of the colors of the subjects. However, she instantly recognized Sable Loom, as he was not disguised for some reason. She did a double take upon seeing the other pony in the photo. It was Fair Fista. It had to be. But take away that cutie mark,
and she looked exactly like an older version of.
Hey, it's Sibyllone's bag!
Twilight said, trotting over to her mentor's side. The rest of the non-guard ponies drifted over as well, herd curiosity taking over.
Who's in the picture, Princess? You tell me, Twilight,
said Celestia, handing the photo off to her pupil. Twilight's eyes dilated as he registered who was in the photo.
No way.
Let me slay! Let me slay! Shouted Applejack, lunging her way forward and taking the photograph. Well, is this some kind of joke? She said, upon seeing who Fair Fistle looked like.
AJ, didn't your mother say Fair Fistle was an ancestor of your bloodline?
Well, yeah, now that you do mention it. But before things went south for him, Sable told me he was originally planning on conferring Twilight that night he attacked, simply to get revenge on the princess. But he changed his mind and went for me so I could be his new mate. Well, he never said why. I guess this here is our answer to that. In the photograph, Fair Fista was almost a dead ringer for a slightly older Applejack, freckles and all. The only major difference was a slightly rougher mane and tail style, and the cutie mark. But without the colors, it was a mistake that could be easily made. So, Sable really did have the hots for you, pointed out Rainbow Dash.
That is really creepy, just so you know.
Rainbow Dash speaks for us all! Applejack responded with a mock vomiting motion, to which every pony laughed. Taking a moment, Celestia turned and headed over to where Iron Will was sitting.
So, let me get this straight, said the medic. You will hunting werewolves because your king says that if you bring him the corpse of one, he'll engage you to the princess.
Yeah, sounds stupid, right? Replied the despondent Iron Will. Welcome to Iron Will's life for the past few months. Chasing a legend simply because his parents nagged him to get married, and look where it's gotten him.
I wouldn't say it was a fruitless endeavor, Celestia said, walking up and overhearing the conversation. Taking the hint, the medic bowed and walked off. While Iron Will was still beat up, he was still mostly patched up, and even without exposure to healing magic, he'd be fine in a day or two with some new battle scars to impress the ladies with. After all, you did end up getting the werewolf, right?
Kinda, sorta, I guess, replied the Minotaur, dropping to third person, as he was in the presence of foreign royalty. But it doesn't count, not in the end, since I didn't actually kill him. Applejack did.
But you made it easier for her to land the killing blow, didn't you?
Yeah, but in Minotaur society, it doesn't matter who does most of the work, just who lands the finishing blow.
Then why did you let Applejack take your kill?
Because she needed to kill him in order to be cured of her own course, that's why. I wasn't about to let something as trivial as an engagement for me, a Minotaur who is already well off and living comfortably, prove to be more important than an innocent pony freeing herself from a curse that made her hate herself. I don't think I could live with myself if I had chosen to be that selfish in that situation.
I consider that a very noble sacrifice.
Thank you, Your Majesty, but that doesn't mean I can't mope about having to throw away months of work with nothing to show for it. Celestia glanced over at the corpse of Sable Loam, still laying when life had left it. Oddly, like every dead werewolf she'd seen, Sable's body had not morphed back to its original pony form. Rather, it remained in its hairier, inequine wolf form.
Iron Will, who was here to witness the death of Sable Loam?
Just me and those ponies over there. Why?
Celestia smiled. As princess, I must be a good politician. And sometimes politicians need to spin the truth. Luckily for you, I am in your debt for saving one of the elements of harmony from a threat even I failed to sense years ago. And I believe I can spin this to be advantage to both us, due to all the witnesses beside yourself being devoutly loyal to me.
Iron Will smiled back. Go on. Last chapter. Red Wedding. Wedding balls sounded off in a grand symphony at Castle Heffron became enshrouded in a cloud of red and white confetti. Crowds of Minotaurs lined the streets, cheering wildly, for it was a national celebration. At long last, Princess Circe was engaged to a worthy mate. Not since the international match held in the Estadio Calatin when the National Minotaur Hoffball team faced off against the Baltimore Orioles from Equestria had there been a larger crown in Hefferton. In retrospect, There wasn't a single Minotaur who would have predicted that Iron Will, seen as something of an outsider to Minotaur traditionalists due to him making a living off of giving seminars to ponies, would gain the hands of the princess. Yet, there was no mistaking him when he stopped his way in the middle of the royal court to present the body of a werewolf to King Minos. Even more sensational was Iron Will's claim that the werewolf he had brought was the same one who had killed the Minotaur Queen almost 1,000 years ago. For him to make such a claim, saying he literally fulfilled the aged king's decree that earned him both a dukedom and the princess's hand. Even more surprising was the support of his claim from none other than the Diarchy of Equestria. In a public release, Princess Celestia stated that the werewolf in question, Sable Loam, had been threatening the state of her country off and on for centuries, and more recently had made attacks on the element bearers. Iron Will, in his werewolf hunting quest, had joined up with the element bearers and several Ponyville Luckies to strike down and end Sable once and for all, with Iron Will doing most of the actual fighting due to his superior strength and immunity to lycanthropy, along with landing the killing blow. King Minos had been so hoping for a potential suitor to complete the task whose credentials were better than your pony motivational speaker, but because of Iron Will's backing by Celestia, and by extension the upper class of Equestria, he had no choice but to honor the age-old process.
Oh, I do love a good wedding!
Sniffed Rarity, dabbing her tears with a kerchief, along with all the other ponies involved with Applejack's werewolf problem. Had been personally invited by Iron Will himself to attend the wedding as VIP guests next to the princesses. Only Princess Cadence and Prince Shining Armor declined, citing a lingering trauma to stem from how far south their own royal wedding had gone. I don't know about you all, but I am pretty suspicious of that Princess Circe, muttered Applejack. How do we know she ain't Chrysalis in disguise?
I doubt Chrysalis would even dare to try to use mind control on some ponies such as Iron Will,
Fireside insisted.
Even she can't have that much control over some ponies as assertive as him.
The cheers and murmurs of the assembled crowds died down as the royal trumpets blared. The gates castles opened, letting out an entire regiment of armed Minotaur guards dressed in their finest liveries. Following them was a troop of traveling earth pony acrobats, serving to increase the already heightened feelings of celebration and merriment at the wedding. Why is it that when they describe this, I'm imagining that this wedding ceremony is like a freaking WWE showing? Do you smell what the marriage is cooking? Another regiment of guards followed the performers. Then came a cart bearing the newlyweds. I'm seriously imagining a heavy metal song playing right now. Pulled by a team of 6 of the strongest Minotaurs, hailing from all across the kingdom. The car was a beautiful piece of art crafted from solid white oak and pure gold. It had been built decades ago to serve as the vehicle of such weddings, and to ride in it was true bragging right of the elite. Of course, Sylvie riding in a royal cart paled in comparison to Iron Will's slaying a Sable Loam, the immortal werewolf. Crowds went wild as the recently christened Duke Iron Will waved at the gathering crowds with his new bride doing the same. Rarity was especially pleased to see them in their outfits. As part of Celestia's agreement with Iron Will to give him the credit for killing Sable Loam was that Rarity be exclusive designer for all attire worn by the participants of the wedding. It proved not only to make the bride and groom look simply outstanding, but would also generate a lot of advertising and business for Rarity in the international sense. As the cart rolled past the equestrian VIP section, Iron Will gave his pony friends a wink and his trademark smile, along with a thumbs up. He'd never be able to truly repay them for what they helped him with. Not the least of which was getting his parents off his back about getting married. The ponies in turn flashed their own winks and smiles with raised hooves, closest they could get to a thumbs up without actually having thumbs. Finally, the last star of the royal procession reared his ugly head. A cart guarded by elite Cadillac Guards ponies rolled behind the newlyweds, showed off Sable Loam. He was, of course, still dead, but as pure Minotaur tradition, the beast that the groom had slain as part of his eligibility ritual was to be shown off during the ritual wedding, then taken to be displayed in the married couple's home as a hunting trophy. Due to King Minos being a stickler for tradition,
Celestia had been convinced to allow Sable's corpse to be taxidermied and publicly displayed. However, due to the unknown properties of Sable's body as a result of it harboring dark magics over the course of 1,000 years, the body was still a well of unknown possibilities. None of them good. It had been agreed on by all parties that after the wedding, Sable's body, and all extracted entrails and bodily fluids, would be shipped back to Canterlot under heavy guard to be sealed away. And a duplicate dummy of Sable's body, virtually indistinguishable from the original if simply looked at, would instead be displayed at the couple's discretion. But as the body of Sable alone trundled in front of the Minotaur masses, it was a humiliating end to the original werewolf, who had terrorized Equestria for almost an entire millennium. The beast who had once dreamed of ascending to the throne atop Celestia's broken corpse, and beginning an age of werewolves as its king, now had been reduced to nothing more than a public spectacle that didn't even give any indication that how Sable's mind had been far more dangerous than his physical attributes. A fitting end for the disgraced former Royal Guard scout. 1 month later.
Yes, sir. These here apples are the sweetest, juiciest, and tastiest of their kind for miles around, said Applejack, beaming with pride toward her crop.
Seriously, Dad, just get some. I can confirm that Sweet Apple Acres are everything she said.
Sandalwood's father, Sea Shanty, tapped his hoof to his chin.
Well, what do you think, dear?
The unicorn next to him laughed.
Shanty and honey, it wouldn't hurt to get some. I mean, they're obviously not poison apples or anything.
Something in the unicorn's manner of delivery rubbed Applejack the wrong way.
Hi! You saying my crop will spare or something?
What? Oh, no. Apologized the unicorn. I didn't mean anything of the sort. My name may be burned in sarcasm, but that doesn't apply to everything I say.
Sea Shanty just rolled his eyes knowingly, put some apples in his saddlebags, before putting a good little amount of bits into Applejack's stand. Surprisingly, Applejack moved to put some bits back.
You're Sandalwood's parents, and I'm still in her debt after all the help she gave me while I was going through some personal issues. The least I could do right now is to give you all a discount on my stuff.
Well, gee, thanks, Applejack. Now come on, Mom and Dad. I've got to introduce you to Pinkie Pie over at Sugar Cube Corner. She's a real character.
Well, from how you described her in your letters, she sounds like a pony I like,
laughed Sea Shanty. As Sandalwood and her parents walked away, Applejack couldn't help but feel pains and jealousy for being fortunate enough for her parents to still be alive. To be able to hug her, kiss her, to cherish... No, thought Applejack. Let's not be fair to Mom and Dad. While the physical means of expressing love had disappeared for Appleseed and Cornflower a decade ago, they still remained as more than a mere memory. They were still out there, watching from above, caring and worrying about Applejack and the rest of her kin. The rest of the day was simple enough. The Orange Farm pony had sold some more apples to various locals, but not of all of her stock. When the time came, Applejack loaded up the unsold crop into the barrels and hitched up to the cart. She began to trek home, taking care that one fork to the right way home and not to end up at the meadery. As he continued to walk home, she noted it felt almost exactly the same as that night months ago when the CMC crashed their car into the Everfree. The night it had all began when Sable alone, seeing the form of his lover incarnated with Applejack, deviated from his plans and cursed her with lycanthropy for the longest months of her life. She had only been free of the curse for 2 months now, having last seen Sable's stuffed corpse during the Minotaur wedding, but, thankfully, the only remnants of that condition were her sleeping fits, where she kept waking up and fearing she would find herself transformed back into a wolf. Even those had finally begun to fade away. Long gone were her involuntary actions, such as constantly wagging tail, and her need to consume meat, the layer of which she was extremely related to have dropped. Out of habit, after she stored the unsold apples, Applejack went to the barn where Apple Bloom's mechanical abomination had been sealed. Now it was referred to as the garage, for the vehicle had permanently changed into the apple truck, thanks to Twilight, now currently sitting inside and waiting to be useful again. With the truck not going anywhere, Applejack then turned her attention to another part of the farm. This time, a place much more sacred. There, and the rose-covered private cemetery of the Apples. The former werewolf sat down in front of the graves of her parents. Taking caution to avoid the thorns, Applejack plucked 2 roses and placed each one on a grave. Suddenly, she felt the earth look skyward. Doing so, she saw 2 familiar orbs streaking across the sky. "Good night, Mom. Good night, Dad," Applejack said, smiling. The moment was, of course, interrupted by Applejack's shouts of, "Applejack! Supper!"
"I'll hear you! Be right there!"
shouted back Applejack. Then, after watching the shooting stars disappear into the night sky, the restored Earth Pony turned and dashed to the kitchen door to take her place at the Apple family table. The end. Whew! What a story. Yeah, I know. I picked this mainly for the werewolf image, and hey, it was October. I had to do a Halloween story. And of course, I couldn't just go with a creepypasta or severe grimdark fic, now could I? You people should know by now I don't do the obvious fics. After all, I'm trying to avoid cupcakes. But I digress. On to the review itself. You can't see the grammar, but it's good. A lot of my mistakes were my own, but I really enjoyed the heck out of this fic. I mean, it's not breaking my top 10 or anything, but it's a really good Applejack fic. For one thing, I love the central theme of here. That Sabalone seems to keep forgetting that the whole lone wolf thing is the most misnomer. Wolves hunt in packs. They rely on the strength of each other to become great. But Sabalone kept focusing only on himself. And when he was alone, well, you could tell that his plans faltered. Anything he tried failed, and then we saw his own deals just completely splat. Thank you, Applejack. And we also see that Sabalone became less and less hinged without that mare by his side. While Applejack, well, by focusing on wanting to remain faithful to her family, and more importantly her friends, Applejack stayed mostly the same. She was still strong, she still had her own will, and she was willing to do anything to protect her family and friends. I also love the fact that when she revealed her secret to her friends, well, the first thing that happened, that first wonderful thing, well, after the initial shock, they immediately accepted her and cared for her. But of course, that's what they do. That's what strong bonds like them do. It helps us to remember that Applejack may be the pillar. She may be the girl that'll put everything on her shoulders. She may be prideful like Dash, but she's also the one that is the support. She's the one who backs every pony up. She's the one who stands tall. She's the strong one, willingly and emotionally. She's the one who wants to throw everything onto her shoulders because she thinks she can handle it. She believes it's her duty, no one else's. She'll take all the blame. She'll take all the punishment because she thinks she can handle it. And we saw this throughout all the fic. AJ trying to keep that secret to herself, trying to determine how she can manage it. AJ figuring out how she could do it. We even see parts of Applejack's business side kicking in by going, okay, here's my schedule, here's how it works. I also love Iron Will.
But that goes without saying, I love the guy, and I love the chance to do the voice. Iron Will thanks you, Mr. User, for doing his voice perfectly.
You're welcome, man. I love doing Iron Will's voice. But I also like that we saw more of the Minotaur culture. We also see more of how Minotaurs rule. And I also love the fact that we got to see that Iron Will is doing his most facial seminars because, well, much like how Rarity does it because she loves her job, Iron Will does it because he loves it. He doesn't want to be a warrior. He wants to be Iron Will, professional seller. And it's my hope that when Iron Will married Princess Cersei, she looked at him and said, "So,
When is Princess Cersei going to go off on one of your seminars? What? You heard me. Now that we are married, I wish to go off on the seminars with you. You want to? You need a lovely assistant, do you not? And Princess Cersei is here to give it to you. Princess Cersei, you're the greatest. Cue lip lock.
Also, I love the main six, of course. This guy did a good job of keeping all the girls in character. Even if, once again, we overdid it with
Pinky's fourth wall breaking.
But I'm okay with that.
One other thing that this fic did wonderfully was add some well done comedy.
I had to admit, I laughed, and there were certain bits of here I'm surprised I don't see werewolf movies doing more often, like,
say, Applejack's womanly issues being used in coordinations with the lunar cycle.
I don't know. Anybody who listens to this, could you please tell me in the comments if there have been werewolf movies that decided to talk about this? Because this is the first time I've ever seen a werewolf attracting a whole horde of dogs due to the fact that she's,
it was simply hilarious to read.
And of course, there are a whole other bunch of bits. And of course, Lyra, this is one of the few times I'm reading a fic where Lyra is not currently Bonbon's girlfriend.
It feels weird.
I also really enjoyed seeing how the girls interacted. Granted, there was only one big friendshiping moment, but through it all, we saw just how much they kept together. The interactions between them and how they cared about one another, and even adding to two new friends to the group, Lyra and Sandalwood. Speaking of Sandalwood, I do love her. We got to see all of her personality quirks, her traits, her cute little character interactions, and who she was as a pony. It made me feel good to read this one. I mean, yeah, she didn't have that much to do with the plot, but not all OCs need to. And when it came to Sandalwood, first, I had to say, and I'm really nervous about this, but if Sable Lumps is insane, I hate to see what Fair Vista would do.
Ugh, could you imagine what would happen if he came back in a sequel? Your problem.
But Sandalwood, but on the Sable Loam, gotta admit, he is an interesting villain. He does have a good backstory, and he does have his own reasonings for doing this, and I do like to see that we got to see more of him besides him just being evil. We saw his intelligence, his cunning, and how devoted he was. And I do love the scenes we have between him and Fair Vista. But I gotta note that this was not Sable Lum's story, and this was not a fic that automatically needed to show its main villain. Sable Lum really didn't have that much development, and that's okay. That is because this was Applejack's story. This was her personality. This was who AJ was, and we all wanted to see more of her. As far as I'm concerned, some of the best AJ stories are always the ones that either focus on her family, focus on changing her, or get her a chance to move her out of her element to show how strong she is. And this fic is no exception. I don't think I have any other complaints, but I gotta admit, this was a really good read, and I hope you all enjoyed it. I also like this fic because, well, it did make me think of a good classic werewolf movie. Namely, one of the first big ones I've ever seen was An American Werewolf in Paris. And that's what this fic made me think a lot of. Right down to some of the more risque bits. I mean, even the way to cure lycanthropy was here. Kill the guy who made you. And that's what happened in American Werewolf in Paris. Also, there were ghosts involved. That movie was hilarious. Anyway, but there were some more. Also, I can't help but think of how some people complain about fanfics using the power of love. If that were true, then
Why isn't Sable Loam? Why didn't Applejack immediately agree to give Sable Loam what he wanted? But Sable Loam, Sable Loam needed to die, and of course, we all saw that he was a complete and utter failure because of his devotion to that. Also, I like the idea that this fic really got into some more interesting werewolf tropes and kind of showed them off in pony style. Well, that's all for the fic. Next time, however, we go back to the Luniverse. Take it, Trixie.
One thing I hate about this job is the paperwork and the complaints and the paperwork and the ponies coming to ask you to help you with their problems and the paperwork and handling some of the finances and the paperwork and the ponies always trying to accost you and the freaking paperwork. Did Trixie mention she hated the paperwork? Yeah. There has to be some way to make this job as registrar easier. Hey, Trixie has it. What? Trixie knows exactly what she's going to do.
What is it, Trixie? I'm afraid to ask.
I am going to get an assistant.
What?
Yes! An assistant! A wonderful, great assistant who will be forever my lackey, who I'll forever make do every single one of my jobs and chores, the one who'll bow down to my every whim, the one who'll become my personal slave. Oh, it's perfect, 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 perfect!
Trixie, I don't think that's how assistants...
Shh! This is the idea of a lifetime! Lyra, let's get auditioning.
This isn't going to end well, is it?
No, it probably won't. Next time on the Universe, file under I for impossible. This is going to be ecstatic!